When I reviewed the Pixel 9 Pro XL last year, I said that I would close out 2024 with my SIM card in this phone, and I did. I enjoyed it that much, lightly crowning it as my favorite for the year. Though not without its flaws, the refreshed design, the intelligent software, the cameras, everything came together for an enjoyable user experience. And then, these came out. Yeah, 2025 started off very strong with the OnePlus 13, and the S25 Ultra launched a month after that. Two excellent phones that surpassed the Pixel in more ways than one. The charm of the Pixel's clean, simplistic offering is great and all, but it didn't take much to notice the differences between these devices and what I'd be missing out on going back to the Pixel. Things like the Ultra's anti-reflective display, the 13's lightning-fast charging speeds, and the raw performance from both. But when I finally took a break from peeking over the fence, I was reminded of why this phone made the cut for me last year. All this time later, I think this phone is as good as it's ever been. The design, while not super original, was a new look for Pixel phones. It's so good and well liked that it'll be sticking around for a while, and I am not mad at that at all. I'm actually happy that they're using this as a foundation to build on for now. Overall, the hardware has held up nicely. I've taken it on a few trips and everything's gone well. I haven't had any notable issues with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth or cell signals. The fingerprint sensor does its job. Maybe a couple misses every once in a while. The haptics remain some of the best around. The speakers still sound really good relative to what's out there. Battery life did take a hit. I think it was the May update. Something happened and battery performance got significantly worse, but recent updates fixed things. So nothing to sound the alarms for by now. It's still been an all-day battery for me. I easily pull 7+ hours of screen on time per charge with mixed usage and even more with light use. And for the battery health police out there you go. There's that. Oh, and I almost forgot about this thermometer. I'm not gonna lie to you, I haven't used this a whole ton, but I've used it every once in a while and it gets the job done. Obviously, you're not supposed to use this in place of a real thermometer. This is one of those features where if it doesn't take up a whole lot of space or resources, then why not keep it around? It's really just a net positive. I don't know, what about you? Do you think that they should keep this around? The cameras, well, there's not a whole lot to talk about here, I'll be honest. They're great, obviously. These cameras are awesome, and we know this. They are some of the best you'll find in any phone, and that'll continue being the case for some time. If you missed my review from last year, here are some photos and videos that I took, and from the contrast, the color, and the detail to the dynamic range, accurate skin tones, paired with a growing collection of AI features, you can see that these cameras got you covered. Whether you're simply looking to snap a photo and share it, or shoot in RAW to edit later. Now, this is a Pro phone though, so I'm gonna need to see some things like the ability to record video in log format. And yes, switching between lenses in videos is still gonna be a little janky, unfortunately. They really gotta work on this, and video in general is still a step behind what the iPhone pushes out. But it's more than capable for those looking to post videos to social media and whatnot, especially when you have something like this. I think by now we all know that having great visuals in your videos means almost nothing if your audio isn't up to snuff. Using a cheap microphone might save a few bucks, but it'll ruin your video and viewers will click away in seconds. What's great is that now you don't have to go far or spend a ton of money to find a solution. This is the Lark A1, an absolutely fantastic high-quality wireless lavalier microphone from Hollyland. It works with both Android phones and iPhones, and it won't break the bank. It starts at just under 50 bucks. It's got 24-bit 48 kHz Pro audio quality, 3-level intelligent noise cancellation to reduce traffic, wind, and crowd noise, 120 decibel SPL with auto limit clip protection, acting as a double safety net for sudden loud sounds, keeping your voice stable and clear, and there are 3 EQ modes and 3 reverb modes to enhance your voice. A single transmitter gets up to 9 hours on a charge, which is already great, but with the optional charging case, you can get 2 refills for a max 54 hours with the dual transmitter setup. And as for range, you're looking at 200 meters or a little over 650 feet. I've actually been using this mic myself for some personal projects recently, and I am genuinely thoroughly impressed with it. If you don't believe me, take a listen for yourself. Okay, so what you're hearing right now is coming straight from the Lark A1 microphone, no post-processing or editing or anything like that, just pure audio. I've actually already recommended this microphone to a number of IRLs, and so far they are loving it. It's super easy to use, it's plug and play, and another thing I really like about this mic is its design. It's super lightweight at 8 grams and just 9 millimeters thin. It also easily attaches magnetically to clothing or accessories, nothing bulky that falls off or looks unprofessional or anything like that. This thing punches way above its weight class, which is why 20 million professionals trust Hollyland. It's crazy. This isn't just about getting decent audio on the cheap. It's about professional grade audio that's accessible and actually competes with systems costing 3 times as much. The Lark A1 is the perfect budget-friendly audio solution. Prices start as low as $35 for the Duo version and the Mini Duo version. Take action now and check out the link below. Alright, so while some of the complaints surrounding the Tensor processor and its performance chops are valid, I really don't care that much about this exact topic, but I feel the need to go over a couple of things. So daily performance has been just fine for me, and in no way has the lack of impressive benchmark numbers hindered me from, using the phone the way I need and want to. There is plenty of RAM, and the G4 is simply that well optimized. And go ahead and call me crazy, it could just be a placebo effect, but it feels like performance has gotten a bit better with updates. It really is incredibly fluid. I don't know. I'm also not a hardcore gamer. If you are and you care about benchmarks, then yeah, not the phone for you. There are plenty of other options out there. I gotta be fair though. As a counter to that argument, these phones aren't cheap. This one cost me just under $1,200 at launch. Thankfully, you don't have to spend that much nowadays. The prices come down a little bit. It is fair to expect and want raw performance to be on par with, or at least in the same arena as other phones in this price bracket and below even. I don't think that's too much to ask for. Now, of course, I would be lying if I said I experienced 0 glitches, hitches, and bugs here and there. Sounds like a law firm. I mean, I've had Google Photos freeze and crash on me a couple times. There's that bug where the Play Store fails to update certain applications, and yeah, I have experienced some not debilitating but very noticeable heating up under heavy load. But again, these things have been helped by updates. Either way, for now, in my personal experience, this phone has been straight butter. If you know, you know. Take that for what you will. Okay, I'm really gonna need Google and application developers to figure out this whole icon thing, man. Why are we still doing this? Pixel software is probably the biggest selling point of these phones, and it's constantly improving. The UI is simple, it's free from stuff that just wants to get in your way, yet it's got an ever-growing library of features. I'm not gonna get into all of them in this video, but in the world of AI on phones, I think Google's leading the charge. I probably didn't have to say that. I think it's pretty clear to see. Shout out Apple. Oof. You got the tools for fixing and enhancing photos and videos. There's live voice transcriptions, live translation, all the phone call features like call screening and call notes and hold for me. You got classics like now playing, there's circle to search, and the deep Gemini integration. The list goes on and on. Now, I get it. AI fatigue is real. AI this, AI that, AI all the things. I'm getting tired of saying it now. It's one thing to throw AI all over the place, but to strategically fuse it into things that genuinely benefit users is something that I find to be a big plus. You probably won't use every single feature here, I know I don't, but they're here if you need them. And it's stuff like this that really defines a smart phone. I am going to need to see some more polish on the practical customization side though. It looks like this new Material 3 Expressive will be a very welcomed visual breath of fresh air, so to speak. It's screaming pure eye candy and I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm hoping to see more functional options like third-party icon pack support in the stock launcher, better icon and widget continuity, the option to hide the perpetual at-a-glance and search widgets, and more, things like that. We're kind of falling behind over here, Google. Android 16 did drop in June, and it's got a nice set of features, some of which aren't out yet. You've got HDR screenshots, live updates, improved security, battery and performance gains with adaptive refresh rate, and more. Oh, and for those that use the 3-button navigation, they added this little feature that lets you take a glimpse at what you're going back to before you go back, if that makes sense. You can see it here. It's pretty neat, and it seems like a good time to ask, which navigation do you use? Are you gestures or buttons? Let me know. Okay, so this isn't a perfect phone. I could harp on what it doesn't have and all the things I think it should do, but I've done that already. I have greatly enjoyed using the Pixel 9 Pro XL, and for a lot of people, it stole the show for 2024, for good reason, and it's acted as a very strong foundation for this upcoming generation of Pixels to be built on. The more you get out there and travel, the more you see people using these things, and sure, its market share is still pretty low, let's be real, but it's getting somewhere. In my opinion, it's never been easier to recommend a Pixel, simply because of how good this line of phones has gotten. It gets a little more difficult when you start peeking over that fence again to see what other phones have in their kit, especially when you look at some of those phones from overseas. Whew. But the one that always comes to my mind first is the OnePlus 13. It has an awesome value proposition. What you get both on paper and in real world experience for the price is almost impossible to ignore. In an effort to refrain from turning this into a full-on comparison bit, I'll leave it there. Google got a lot right with this phone, and I'm hoping that some of the things that weren't as high on the priority list become more of a focus moving forward, because if and when that happens, you might be looking at the best phone money can buy. Come on, Google, hop to it. Until then, I'm really looking forward to the Pixel 10 Pro. Along with that TSMC manufactured G5 chip, I'm expecting the series to get the usual incremental yet important upgrades like bigger batteries with faster charging. It's probably not going to be super fast, but hopefully faster than what we have now. Higher base storage, faster storage too, and other refinements along with those new Android 16 features that'll eventually make their way to this phone, including Material 3 Expressive. Pixel 10 is also rumored to be getting a price bump, so that's fantastic. Even though the Pixel 10 is about to release and might even be out by the time you're watching this, it could be a good time to look into grabbing a 9 Pro at a discount. It's not like I think the 10 Pro won't be great, I'm sure it will be. But if you're looking to save a few $100 and you just want a rock solid premium phone loaded with great cameras, a regularly updated bucket of features, and 6 more years of support, here you go. If you made it to this point of the video, you are awesome and you know what to do. It's time to drop a potato in the comments and let me know what you think of the current and upcoming Pixel phones. Thank you so much for watching.